Welcome to This Explainer, everyone. Today, we're stepping into the role of impartial investigators to examine some of the most baffling mysteries ever recorded. Have you ever looked up at a pitch-black sky out in the middle of nowhere? Well, Australia is this massive, isolated continent, and its incredibly vast, dark skies and endless stretches of uninhabited outback create the absolute perfect backdrop for the unexplained. For decades now, this landscape has been the setting for a whole series of highly documented, deeply unsettling encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. So we're going to look at the physical evidence left behind, the chilling first-hand accounts, and then apply some psychological and scientific lenses to try and make sense of it all.
Okay, let's dive into this and open up the dossier. We're going to cover the Valentic disappearance, the terror on the Nullarbor Plain, the Kelly Cahill mystery, the science and psychology behind these events, and we'll wrap it all up with the Fermi paradox.
Section 1. The Valentic disappearance over the Bass Strait in October 1978. What started out as a completely routine training flight for a 20-year-old pilot quickly evolved into one of the most iconic aviation mysteries of all time. Picture this. It's the evening of October 21st, and Frederick Valentic is flying his Cessna 182L over the Bass Strait. His final communications with Melbourne Air Traffic Control paint this chilling picture of a rapidly escalating situation. At 7:06 p.m., he radios in to ask if there's any known traffic below 5,000 feet. Flight service confirms there's absolutely none. But Valentic states that a large, unknown aircraft illuminated by 4 bright landing lights had just passed 1,000 feet overhead at incredibly high speed. By 7:09 p.m., he reports that the object is purposely toying with him, literally orbiting above his Cessna. He describes a shiny metallic surface and a prominent green light. Then, at 7:12 p.m., things take a very dark turn. Valentic reports his engine is rough idling and coughing. Moments later, his transmission is interrupted by this strange metallic scraping sound. But right before that terrifying noise, he delivers his final, fateful message. He keys his mic and says, "It is hovering and it's not an aircraft." And with those exact words, Frederick Valentic cemented his case in aviation and UFO lore forever. All contact was lost immediately after that. A massive search and rescue operation was launched almost instantly. Over the coming days, sea and air teams, including a Royal Australian Air Force Lockheed Orion, scoured 1,000 square miles of the Bass Strait. Just imagine searching an area the size of a small country, looking for a needle in a haystack, and finding practically nothing. In fact, it wasn't until 5 whole years later that a single engine cowl flap, which was identified as coming from a Cessna within the serial number range of Valentic's plane, finally washed ashore on Flinders Island. Section 2. Terror on the Nullarbor Plain, Eyre Highway, January 1988. Now, the mystery moves from the ocean skies to a completely desolate stretch of outback highway. And this brilliantly illustrates the physical side of these encounters. Faye Knowles and her 3 adult sons were driving across this incredibly desolate plain at 2:45 in the morning when they were terrorized by a glowing object. But they didn't just see a light in the sky, they reported that the UFO actually plucked their car right off the road. They said the vehicle was shaken violently before being forced back down onto the tarmac with such immense pressure that it blew one of their tires. When they finally escaped, the car was completely covered in an unexplained ash-type substance. And what really makes this case remarkable is that the South Australian police took the report highly seriously after inspecting the physical damage. Plus, the bizarre event was corroborated by a truck driver and another motorist traveling in the opposite direction. Section 3. The Kelly Cahill Mystery. Dandenong Ranges, August 1993. A routine drive home turns into our most complex case yet. So a 27-year-old mother, using the pseudonym Kelly Cahill, is driving home with her husband when they spot what they initially think is just a blimp. It was this massive object, hovering low over a field, ringed with glowing orange windows and illuminating the ground below with an eerie blue light. As they approach it, there's a sudden, blinding white light. The next thing Kelly remembers, she's simply back in her car, driving on an empty road. The craft is totally gone. But when the couple arrives home, they realize something terrifying. An entire hour of their journey had completely vanished. Neither of them had any memory of what happened during that blank gap in the night. Now we have to look at 2 vastly different ways of viewing what happened next. On one hand, Kelly claims she found strange triangular burn marks near her navel, and under hypnosis she recovered memories of being abducted by tall, dark figures with glowing red eyes, who telepathically communicated a threat, "Let's kill them." UFO investigators even claimed other drivers stopped that night and experienced the exact same thing. But on the other hand, skeptics point out there were no verified, independent medical reports of these burns. Psychologists note that severe stress and exhaustion naturally distort our perception of time. And most importantly, none of the alleged other witnesses ever actually came forward to mainstream media or filed police reports. Section 4. Science, Psychology, and Hoaxes. Deconstructing the encounters. To truly understand these phenomena, we have to step back from the extraterrestrial hypothesis for a second and examine these specific cases through the rigorous lens of modern science and skepticism. By the time Kelly Cahill reported her encounter in 1993, a very specific narrative blueprint for alien abductions already existed in popular culture. Going all the way back to the famous Betty and Barney Hill case in 1961 and continuing right up to the premiere of the television show The X-Files in 1993, the public had been thoroughly conditioned to expect a specific sequence of events: bright lights, followed by sudden missing time, culminating in medical examinations that are recovered later through hypnosis.
So, the crucial point here is understanding a psychological phenomenon known as confabulation. This is what happens when the unconscious mind tries to fill in the blanks of a memory by drawing on cultural stories, movies, or books. Because Kelly Cahill's memories of tall figures and telepathic threats were primarily recovered weeks later using hypnotic regression, a lot of psychologists warn that these memories are often highly unreliable and shaped by suggestion. Think about how easily your own brain plays tricks on you when you're just a bit exhausted. Now imagine that amplified by hypnotic suggestion. And science offers some pretty compelling, rational explanations for our other cases too. Looking back at the disappearance of Frederick Valentich, astronomer James McGaha and author Joe Nickell proposed a harrowing aerodynamic explanation. They suggest the young, inexperienced pilot was deceived by the illusion of a tilted horizon. Attempting to compensate, he inadvertently put his Cessna into a downward graveyard spiral, which he mistakenly perceived as the object orbiting him. The tightening g-forces of that spiral would actually decrease fuel flow, completely explaining his report of the engine coughing. And the lights? Well, they argue he was likely disoriented and looking at planets and bright stars. It's a tragic reminder to keep the narrative grounded. It likely wasn't an alien craft at all, but rather a terrifying sensory illusion that tragically cost a young man his life.
Section 5. The Fermi Paradox. The ultimate cosmic question. Ultimately, all of these cases lead us to zoom out from Australia and look at the entire universe. This brings us to the overarching scientific framework that makes the debate around these UFO cases so intense: the Fermi Paradox. Named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who proposed it during a casual lunch conversation way back in 1950, it highlights a massive contradiction. Our universe is unimaginably vast. We're talking hundreds of billions of galaxies with planets sitting right in the habitable zone. Statistically speaking, intelligent extraterrestrial life should be absolutely inevitable. The galaxy should be literally teeming with evidence of their presence. Yet, when we scan the cosmos with our radio telescopes, we find absolute silence. No signals, no artifacts, just an empty void. And that profound cosmic silence is exactly what makes cases like Valentich, the Nullarbor Plain, and Kelly Cahill so utterly fascinating to us. They sit right on that uneasy boundary between psychological illusion and undeniable physical evidence. If intelligent life really is out there, perhaps the Fermi Paradox isn't asking the right question at all. Instead of asking, "Where is everybody?" as we look out into the stars, perhaps, after looking at the skies over Australia, the real question we should be asking is, have they already been here?